Howdy, guys, and welcome to night 83 of Big Brother All Stars. This is Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. We are this close, guys. We're almost to the end of the season. We know it. The house guests definitely know it. Inside the house, they're ready to wrap this thing up as well. But with that being said, we're not done yet. We still have a few conversations that are taking place, and we're going to cover those this evening. Now, as I've said before in different episodes, I'm going to say it again this evening. There are some potential spoilers that we're going to talk about tonight. In particular, the winner of the second round of the final three battles. We know who the winner is. It has not been revealed yet on the CBS episode. So if you don't want to be spoiled, just pause. Come back in 24 hours or so, or come back right after the Wednesday finale, and you can catch up at that point in time. But you have been warned. For the rest of y'all, let's talk about what happened overnight. Now, we didn't have a lot of real strategic gameplay conversations. It was a little bit more the house guests trying to deal with the boredom that now exists, thinking about their last nights in the house. There was a little bit of talking about people and seed planting and things like that in terms of the finals. So we'll talk about that as well. But definitely the guests are starting to emotionally and mentally prepare for the fact that this journey is going to end probably for all three of these house guests. This will be the last time they're in the Big Brother house forever. So they're trying to adjust to the fact that this particular journey is just about at the end. But let's talk about some of the conversations that were had. Now, first of all, we've got to talk about a topic that was brought up yesterday. Talk with an Accent Day is now complete. Whoop! Yes, they talked with an accent. Cody was the main participant. Enzo did it some. Nicole just a little bit. And Cody's accent, some kind of sort of British kind of something, combined with a little James Bond if he'd had a few too many martinis, and was conversing with someone from Monty Python's comedy troupe. You combine all that together into some kind of mishmash, and you get some kind of accent that is hopefully spoken by no one in the world except for Cody. If there's other people speaking it, let me know, and I'll avoid that particular country. But they try to have fun any way they can, and so they spend a little bit of time talking with their accents and such. But now that day is officially, it's complete. We'll see if there's still some accents going on tomorrow or at finale. But they're through talking accents. So let's start with some of the conversations. Why don't we start with Biblegate? Yes, indeed. And I mentioned a few nights ago that right about the time Christmas was evicted, the Bible has disappeared from the Big Brother house. And Cody and Nicole are talking about it again this evening. Cody mentions that the Bible still hasn't been found, and they're pretty convinced that Christmas probably took it with her. So they're wanting some things to read and do a little last minute Bible study, but it's not possible now that it's disappeared. It'll show back up next season. I'm positive it will. But again, the Bible is still missing for those of you who are interested. We have in the love room, and I talk about not a lot of game strategy, but there are people still preparing, and Nicole in particular. Now, I don't know what Nicole's chances are. A little bit of it depends on if she wins and who she takes, or if she gets taken by Cody, etc. But don't let it be said that Nicole hasn't done everything possible to prepare for her jury speech if she gets that opportunity to give it, because she is in the love room and she is again practicing her jury speech that we saw her doing last night as well. So Cody, not really, you don't see him talking as much about, but Nicole is certainly preparing. She's much of what we covered yesterday, and I'm not going to cover it again. She is now also talking about, as part of her speech, mentioning how she took out Memphis, who she is referring to as the head of the snake. Well, there were only 5 people at that point in time: Cody and Nicole, Enzo, and then Memphis and Christmas. Yes, Nicole won HOH, and so she put up Memphis and Christmas. It was actually Cody and Enzo who decided to send Memphis out the door instead of Christmas. So I'm not sure from a responsibility standpoint that may not be stretching it just a little bit in terms of the arguments Nicole's making. But she talks about that she took out Memphis. She's calling him the head of the snake. I'm not sure referring to one of the jurors as a head of a snake is necessarily going to win a vote from Memphis or Christmas. but she's trying to come up with every angle that she can pitch if she makes it to the jury. So she is going to be prepared. I think she's got a good campaign speech. I think if she loses it, it's not going to be because she didn't throw out a lot of good points to at least force these jurors to consider. Now, unfortunately, a lot of jurors probably already going to have their minds made up once they get in there, but she's doing what she can. All right, so Nicole is also saying that she won part 1 and part 3 of the finals. We don't know that yet, but she's making that assumption, and that winning part 3, she still chose to take Cody because she isn't afraid of him. Well, that tells me 2 things. One, it sounds like she truly is planning to take Cody if she wins the final part of this competition. I just don't know how safe that is. I think she may rue the day that she made that particular decision. She says in this speech that she's going to say she's not afraid of Cody. I think she needs to be. I think she may be overestimating the weight that confidence alone carries. When she tells the jurors, I wasn't scared of Cody, well, again, he won a lot of competitions, and I definitely think Nicole has a much better chance of winning this game if she drags Enzo along instead of Cody. But it sounds like that's not going to be the decision as make. Here's one thing. She is making the assumption that she's going to win the final 3 based on her speech. That's probably not a bad assumption to make, only because if she doesn't win, if Cody wins and takes her instead of the other way around, I really think Cody has this in the bag. But if she wins, and then she can take Cody and she can offer up the argument of, hey, Cody wouldn't even be here except that I, Nicole, decided to take him. That carries a little bit more weight. I think also there's going to be jurors, though, that may penalize Nicole for not taking a bold move at the very end and sending Cody out the door, considering what a comp beast he was and everything else. So it could go both ways. But again, she's continuing to practice that particular conversation. Enzo has been in bed most of the day, apparently. I think all these house guests slept till late in the afternoon. Their sleep schedules as messed up as mine is, because I've been watching these guys. I haven't been having to follow the same schedule they follow. But he's been in bed most of the day. At one point, he talks about how ready he is to get out of the house. I just want to get out of here, yo, just want to get out of here at this point in time. So he's ready to shut it down. I think in some ways Enzo is checked out just a little bit. He wasn't doing a lot of campaigning today. I think he either is resigned to his fate, that he thinks there's not a chance that he's getting taken to the final 2, or that he feels like he's already done every bit of campaigning possible, and at this point it's just up to them to decide one or the other, because we didn't hear a lot from Enzo at this point in time. Now, I think if I was in there and I was in Enzo's position, I'd be doing just the opposite. I would be ramping it up. I would be asking Nicole every time she was around Cody, I'd be saying, hey, if you win this $500,000, Nicole, what are you going to spend it on? Or, hey, you've won it before. How'd you do your taxes? How are you going to do taxes if you win it this time? I would just continually plant in Cody's mind the idea that Nicole could potentially win this thing, and just get him thinking about it, nervous about it. He can't stop now. These last 24 hours could be critical, but we're not hearing a whole lot of conversation at that point in time. Nicole is in bed complaining that it's cold. I remember last season hearing how cold it was in the house because all the bright lights. So they had to keep everything cold to keep those things from overheating. So I brought so many hoodies and sweaters and cold weather gear, wore almost none of them because it was so hot in that house. Most of the season was uncomfortably hot. I remember at night, I like to sleep under a blanket, and yet it was brutally hot. I could throw it off, but then you're just those cameras everywhere, and now you don't have anything, and you're so there was no winning. Nicole talks about how cold she is, but then later when she goes to bed, she complains how hot it is under the blanket. So yeah, it's tough, the environment with all those lights everywhere in that house. Enzo is eating dinner, chicken, by himself. We see a lot of that. Enzo and Cody are both asking for alcohol again. Cody's saying, I'm not sure if it's going to happen anymore, Enzo. It does. They get a little bit more. But they seem to think that if they're over the top with their accents and ask for alcohol, then that'll make it all magical and they'll get them. Hey, maybe that is what worked. Maybe future Houseguests need to keep that in mind. They're playing chess between Enzo and Cody. You think watching those two guys playing chess sometimes is kind of bad, kind of boring for the live feeds. We'll try it while they're both speaking in accents and then see how you feel about it. So they're playing chess. They're talking in accents as well. Eventually, we have Nicole eating dinner alone again. And eventually the house guests do get a bottle of wine, and they finally get a deck of cards. So the last night or two, they're going to have something other than backgammon and chess to play with. And they immediately start playing some different card games. Before that happens, though, Enzo's in the lounge upstairs, which people have been rarely at here for the last half of the season. But Enzo's upstairs. He's whispering that his hope really is that Cody takes him over Nicole, that he thinks that's a very small possibility. But he thinks that Nicole is too scared of Enzo to take him over Cody. I don't think it's that Nicole is scared of Enzo is why she's not taking him. She ought to be a lot more scared of Cody. I think it's all just about relationships, loyalties, all the same things that Cody kept in his mind when he chose to take Derek over Victoria. Nicole's considering the same thing, and she may get burned just the same way that Cody did also. The house guests, in addition to the bottle of wine, have now received 3 cans of beer, and they continue to play cards. They're playing all different card games. This is in the living room. Gin rummy, spoons, hearts. It's not easy because Enzo isn't really necessarily getting a lot of the rules of some of these games or the concept of bluffing. At one point, he said, all I'm hearing, guys, is just lots of blah, 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 as y'all try to explain the rules. But they are having fun playing spoons at one point. And then they start playing a game where you put a card on your forehead. You can't see what your card is, but the other two can. And they have a lot of fun playing that. So they are keeping themselves entertained. Cody and Enzo at one point are talking about how badly they want out of the house. It's just at the end, and they're tired of it. They're ready to just wrap this thing up and be gone. Cody is, though, talking also about how much better this final 3 is compared to his last final 3 when it was him and Derek and Victoria in the house. He's saying that Victoria was just constantly begging Cody and Derek and how awkward it was. Now, I don't think Enzo needs to be begging for votes. That's not going to work. He just needs to be subtly planting ideas in their minds and continually get them scared and nervous about the other person, Nicole for Cody, Cody for Nicole. Get them nervous about each other. Force them, let them come to their own decision that Enzo's safer to take to the end rather than just begging, and because that's not going to get you anywhere, and it is going to make the situation uncomfortable. But Cody's saying that's much better. Nicole says I would much rather I wouldn't have anyone but you two as my final 3 in this house. So they're happy with the trio that they ended up with. Well, Cody and Nicole are. I'm not sure Enzo's necessarily happy with it, but it is, in Enzo's words, it is what it is. Yo, it is what it is. Apparently, they were told not to expect to see their families because of COVID restrictions and stuff. So families won't be there. We're not real sure exactly how this finale is going to work, but there won't be family attending, which tells me probably not any kind of crowd whatsoever. No big surprise. But they're saying not seeing their family just makes them want to get on a plane and fly home. They don't want to spend a lot of time having to do different things. Now, just as an FYI, when these 3 house guests wrap up the season, they haven't done any media, anything else at that point in time. So before they're allowed to get on the plane and fly home, I'm sure they'll be sequestered somewhere, and they'll probably have a good 12, 24 hours of talking to media and doing all kinds of press and things like that. And then they'll be put on a plane and go see their families and things like that. They are talking about how nice it's going to be once they're out of the house to have their phones, their AirPods back, everything else. Enzo says, yeah, that's all going to be great. I just want to take a nice, long, hot shower. That's my goal as soon as I get out of this house. So he's ready to enjoy the fine things in life. But they all say, we just want to get on a plane and fly home at this point in time. Cody's saying, last time I wanted to hang out with Derek and everything else, the rest of the cast. This time I'm just ready to go home. They're talking about high school sports. Apparently Nicole played a lot of sports in her high school, small school. Cody went to a huge school. They're talking about college courses. Nicole said she hated history. They talk about some of the tough science courses. Enzo's talking about his daughter having a peanut allergy, so they keep EpiPens everywhere just to be careful. It just reminded me last season, Tommy had a severe peanut allergy, so we were incredibly careful to make sure that wasn't an issue. He kept his own jar of jelly in the storage room refrigerator, just so if people making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches accidentally got some peanut butter in the main jar, it wouldn't affect Tommy. So we went out of our way and it worked out fine. But Enzo's saying, yeah, we got to be very careful with EpiPens and all of that. And then finally, about 2:00 Big Brother time, all the house guests are in bed. Enzo's whispering that, hey, Nicole doesn't have a chance if she's there with Cody. He needs to just keep telling her that, but I agree. All right, guys, that's it. Hopefully 24 hours, I'll be back again. Not sure what's going to happen with the feeds, but we'll talk about conversations. We'll wrap up. We'll deal with something as well. Y'all have a fantastic Tuesday. Tomorrow is the finale. We're going to see what happens. Y'all have a great one, guys. SKD 143. Cheers, my friends. Bye.